Hello and welcome developers. My name is Shay and this is another episode of Shay Develops. Today we're going to be talking about method overloading in Java. Now method overloading is just a way to create a method or multiple methods that all have the same name, but they're going to have a different method signature. And we're going to talk about like what a method signature is and how you can figure out and make sure that your methods have different method signatures. Let's go ahead and first start with one that you might be already familiar with that you may not know that you're familiar with, and that is the print line method right here that we've already been using. This prints stuff out to the console. Now, why is it a overloaded method? Well, the print line method can print a string, right? But it can also take things like integers, and we can output the integer. Oh, that's not how you type that. Output the integer I, or char data type, or float, or long. Hopefully you understand and get the picture. So let's look at the code behind this by using the control key, and then I can click on print line. I agree to those terms and conditions. And you'll see, if we look for it, print line, there we go, print line, we see that it's got one where it just prints lines void or doesn't have any kind of variable or argument that you're passing to it. But there's other ones that you see here, right here, take a char and take an int, but yet they all have the same name. And that's what method overloading is, like I said. But they have different method signatures because the variable that they take, or the arguments that they take, are of different data types. So this one's a boolean, this one's a char, and this one's an int, but yet they all have the same name. So that's one, like I said, you would already be familiar with. You may not know that you're familiar with it, but understanding the print line is fairly basic as far as in Java when you're wanting to print something out to the console. So let's go ahead and write a overloaded method by ourselves, and we'll look at some other interesting quirks about them. So let's go ahead and create an example class. So we're just going to call it example, and we'll do private string name, private int, we'll call it count or something like that. And then we'll create our constructor. And by the way, constructors can also be overloaded as well. So if I had another constructor where I didn't want, or I only wanted the name, or I only wanted the count, or something like that, I could do that, and this is totally fine. It works just the same. The mouse seems to have a little bit of difficulties there. All right, I'm going to erase that. But let's actually create, like I said, our own overloaded method. And I'm going to show you what's important whenever creating your overloaded method and what's not. So let's do public void, don't have to return anything. Overload methods, what we're going to call it. We're not going to pass anything in the first one, and we'll just output, this is the first overloaded method. And let's go ahead and create another one, public void overloaded method, and this time we'll pass in an integer value. This will be second overloaded, well, it's not really the second, but that's what we're going to call it, overloaded method with value of I. Right, now that's going to pass it out. So these two methods, as I said, while they have the same name, have different method signatures. Now, what creates a method signature? And a method signature is just a way for Java to keep track of your methods. So method signature is dictated based on the name of the method and the parameters that you type to it. So I said this one is overloaded method with a parameter of int, and this is an overload. This is our other method with no parameters. So if we come back here to our main and we create an example. We'll do example 1 equals new example, and we'll pass it a string and our value, our count value. I say which is arbitrary, means absolutely nothing. But now we can do example dot overloaded method, and you see we have two of these right here. Overloaded method with, oh, I misspelled those. So those aren't even actually overloaded methods right now. Those are just two different methods. So let's make those the same. Save that again. So example dot, and now we have them both the same here. One being, like I said, taking an int value, and the other one taking nothing. So let's do the first one, and then we'll copy that, and make it again. But this time we're going to pass it I. And let's go ahead and print this out and see what happens. And it's building. Let me make this a little bigger. So first we got string and 0, which is just us doing when I was talking about print line. But here we got, this is the first overloaded method. And then second overloaded method with the value of 0, because we passed 0 to I. And that's how overloaded methods work. Now there's some other things though to keep in consideration. Say we wanted to create an overloaded method that, and this might get a little over your head, you may not understand it, but that takes an object and then one that takes a string. Well, since a string is a subclass of object, an object is a superclass of string, if you're passing, string to the the method that we're trying to overload, and you have one of each method that it could possibly run, which one will it take? And the one that it's going to take is the one with it's an exact match. So let's go ahead and show that as well. So public void, we're going to do exact match. This one we're going to pass an object. We'll just output the object. And this one, public void exact match, and this one we're going to take a string and we're just going to output the string. Okay, so if we create, let me go ahead and close this here, go back to main, and I'm going to comment out all of this so far. Except for we're going to leave example 1. Now, example 1 dot exact match, we need to create an object and a string. Well, let's first actually create a string equals, actually, string 1 equals my new string, and we pass it here. Actually, let's go ahead, let's erase this real quick so you can see something else. Exact match. Right here we have object and a string. So doesn't matter which one we select. And then we're going to pass string 1. So let's actually change this up a little bit so we can object string. All right, now we're going to go back. Now, we passed it a string. So it is going to, based off of what I said previously, it's going to follow the exact match method. So if we run this, we're going to get string my new string. Now let's create an object. Object equals new object, and we're going to pass 0.1 exact match. We're going to pass it object. This one will print out the reference to the object that we just created called obj right here. So if you guys are starting to understand, like I said, how that works, knowing, like, talking about exact match and and the method signatures and stuff like that, and how all that works together. Now, and also just keep in mind, I know it's if you're coming from different programming languages, like say JavaScript or something like that, you may be familiar with like compilation errors or something like that. But that's, I said with Java, this works. So we were talking about earlier that the fact that the object class is a superclass of the type string class, and there are other, and object's actually the superclass of a lot of things, but there are other issues that you may see as well. So when running with, like, you pass it an integer or an int, and that's not actually going to be an issue, but because the integer is our actual class over the primitive data type, which is int, if you were to create one that took an integer and one that created an int, you got to make sure that the one that, actually, let me just go ahead and show you. So say this one right here takes an int, right, in our overloaded method. But I want to create and take this and turn this into an integer. Which is basically the same thing, but it gives you access to other methods and stuff like that that you can run on your integer values, right? So if I take that and then I pass it into here, let's see what happens. Boom, we got second overloaded method with the value of I. So due to auto boxing, where it automatically takes your non-primitive data types and then converts them to a primitive data type where it can, this actually works. But if I was to do, let's copy this method right here. Sorry, my mouse is acting up here, but we're going to go ahead and see how we actually get an error here. And let me make this a little bigger, but see how we actually get this error here. That is because these two methods have the same method signature. And remember, a method signature comes from the method name and the parameters that we pass it, not public or void or any of that stuff, just method name and the parameters that we're passing it. So let's go ahead and make this one an integer though, and everything gets cleared up. So now let's go ahead and do int a equals 2, and let's go ahead and copy this again. Actually, I can just use Control D, there we go, and make a copy of it that way. And then I'm going to pass it a, and see, and it called the second overloaded method because I didn't make them any different here. But let's make it third, and then integer a and I. So let's see what happens when we run it. Alright, so you can see this one called the third overloaded method, and then this one called the second, which is our third one was our integer, and our second was just the int. So that's just some things, guys, to keep in mind. Hopefully you learned something from this video. Please come back, check out for more. I'll be making more videos weekly on primarily Java, and we're going to keep diving in deeper and deeper. I record those videos on the fly because I make mistakes. Everybody else makes mistakes. I want you to see them, and I want you to learn from them as much as possible. Please like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you're working on in the comments, and how I can help you in the future. Stay tuned for the next video. You guys are awesome. Peace.